1. Obligatory this didn't happen today, was several weeks ago. Some backstory. A couple friends and I have a side hobby of rocketry, building model rockets and launching them out in the middle of nowhere at one of our houses. They're homemade with sugar and KNO3, a good, safe project to work on in your free time. These are 100% legal. The high school I went to here even makes these as chemistry curriculum, and we always follow all the airspace guidelines and safety measures. The other day, we'd built one about 3 feet long with a good engine, and we were really optimistic about getting almost as far as we could push the legal airspace limit in our area. Went to light the fuse. Nothing. It was about 0 degrees and well below zero with big gusts of wind, and the lighter just wasn't having it. I soaked the fuse in lighter fluid, and still nothing. The entire bottle of lighter fluid cracked too and spilled out, so we ended up using what was for the rocket fuse and engine to get it to light. Still nothing. I ran inside and grabbed a newspaper and a plastic box, lit the paper up and hauled ass back to our launch pad with a box of fire that would light the rocket in place of the lighter. At this point, we were all freezing to death and needed to get the launch done quick. So I lit up the fuse and sure enough, it went up in flames. Unfortunately, the high winds snapped part of the pad and a flaming rocket fell onto the ground. Not moving but just burning fiercely. There was absolutely no risk of fire as we launch after a rain and snowstorm and take the necessary precautions. Normally, once the fire dies down within half a minute or so, it can just be stomped out completely. We weren't too happy with the result of the whole mess, so we cleaned up the debris, and I went to stomp out the fire. It is at this point that the fuck-up began. You see, I forgot that the fuel was still burning a little. Normally this would be fine, but you remember earlier when the lighter fluid bottle cracked open. Little did I know the fluid had soaked into my jeans, and I never noticed because I was already freezing. I stomped on the fuel, noticed that it was still burning, and then immediately noticed that my pants were ablaze. At this point, I stomped again to get the fire off my ankles, and it didn't work. Within a second or two, it was almost to my balls, and I had no plans to deal with that. Cue me scrambling to remove my pants on fire in freezing weather. I made a mad dash for the water and ended up rolling around on the ground while dousing myself in ice water. As soon as the fire went out, it hit me that the water was downright frigid. I put Usain Bolt to shame in the sprint to the house. I'm told that watching a single half-naked man in boxers soaked in ice water sprinting across a field in the middle of bumfuck nowhere was the highlight of my friends' lives. 2. It had been a seemingly uneventful day, especially since it was a snow day. My sister and I had been obsessed with the Great British Baking Show lately, so we passed the storm by attempting to make a Swiss roll. After a family dinner, we were cleaning up and putting dishes away in the open dishwasher. I wanted to present the cake and put a little powdered sugar on top of it to jazz it up, a decision that would come back to stab me in the ass. This prompted me to get the sifter, which is conveniently located to the right of the open dishwasher. Within this dishwasher and closest to the sifter containing cabinet was the separate compartment for dirty cutlery, all standing to attention. So in my motion to bend down to retrieve the tool, my unsuspecting butt felt 4 identical pricks as the pines of the offending dinner fork poked through my pants and sank about 1/4 inch into my lower left cheek. At first I was more in shock than anything, and was probably a pretty comical sight as I jumped up, with the fork still attached to my rear. Initially it hurt, but it was bearable. My mom freaked out and I literally had to calm her down. I asked her to pull it out, which is when I realized, painfully, that it was in pretty deep. Soon enough, the rest of my family saw that the situation was kinda serious, albeit hilarious, and they jumped into action. My mom called my neighbor a chiropractor and my sister called 911. My dad, however, tried to dominate the situation, He did this by incessantly demanding we trust his Boy Scout knowledge of puncture wounds, and just yank it out and apply pressure. However, my sister already had a professional on the phone, so my dad's aggressive input was unnecessary and quite unhelpful to the already tense environment. In fact, it literally caused the dispatcher to think that a stabbing had actually occurred because of the yelling. So they sent like 5 squad cars along, and the ambulance. They arrived within like 1 or 2 minutes. It was almost spooky how quick it was. I was okay by the time the EMTs arrived, a little shaken up by my dad's behavior. I had cried a bit, but they wrapped it up and had a laugh doing it. It was a good reminder how ridiculous the whole thing was. I was smiling by the time I got to the emergency room, where I was quite obviously the entertainment on a slow night. Basically, every nurse tried to act like they were involved so they could see the girl with the fork in her ass. It was great fun. They didn't really make a production out of it. They just stuck me with some numbing shots and yanked it out, having to cut a favorite pair of pants in the process. No stitches necessary, and apparently, according to the EMTs, we had done the right thing not following my dad's advice and just pulling it out then and there. We tried the Swiss roll when we got home. It was forking amazing. 3. So a couple of days ago, the northeast USA got hit with Winter Storm Stella. Where I live got hit with about 2 feet of snow, but thanks to an abundance of wind, there are piles of accumulation anywhere from a few inches to 3 to 4 feet due to the snow blowing around. More on that later. I'm a college student, and I live with my boyfriend and 3 other housemates in our apartment. We all got a day off because of the snow, so naturally, we were smoking bowls and watching Netflix. As the munchies kick in, I remember that I have some leftover curry from a local delicious Indian restaurant on the street, and decide to heat it up. And of course, you can't have curry without rice, so I throw the curry in the microwave, put some rice and water on the stove on low, and decide to retreat back to the warmth of my room. My roommates don't like us to keep much heat on in the house, and my toes are cold. A considerable amount of time later, we're watching a rather steamy part of the movie, and the music in the background is horribly arranged, or at least that's what I thought. This monotonous beeping keeps interrupting the beat. Wait, wasn't I cooking rice? My high ass forgot about the rice, and I come out to find my apartment filled with smoke, and 2 smoke alarms going off. I tell my roommates we should get out, as my boyfriend tries to get the rice out of the apartment, which was burning but not on fire. My heart is racing and I'm in a state of panic, not helped much by the weed. I run over to the door to open it and get some fresh air, when I see that none of us has shoveled the deck yet, and we're stuck behind about 3 feet of snow, most of which has blown over from our roof. Now starts the real panic. There's a wooden katana by our door that I stick through the small crack in an opening that I can manage with this screen door, and I start going crazy with it and I try to loosen some snow. My boyfriend takes over this as I go to try and calm down and fan the fire alarm that is now screaming "evacuate" at me. I go over to him a few minutes later. He mumbles something that I took as, "Yeah, I'm getting there, blah blah blah," try and squeeze through the door. There's a 4-inch opening, and my adrenaline-soaked body decides that we can fit through there. I squeeze through, bending the door, hyperspeed shoveling an area, so he can open the door and my housemates can come outside. After a long while of shoveling in soggy pajama pants and a t-shirt, we were all safe and breathing fresh air. After the place had been aired out, thanks to the windows and some fans, we went back inside to get warm and hang out. What I failed to realize was that I was the only one freaking out the whole time as I'm trying to calm myself down. It's been about 45 minutes and my heart is still beating out of my chest and my knees are still shaking. I start to feel something warm and wet on my shirt, along with a steadily increasing amount of pain. I lift up my shirt and find one normal breast and one covered in blood from the nipple down. The shirt I was wearing was black, though I hadn't noticed the blood. After taking a while to try and think where the hell this came from. I remember that I slipped through an opening between the metal door and the wall that was about 4 inches too small for my body to comfortably slide by. Thanks to the crazily adrenaline and panic attack, I hadn't felt this at all. My pointy nipple ring that catches everything had gotten caught on the door and almost nearly ripped completely out of my nipple. Yeah. So now my house smells like nauseating smoke. I ruined one of my favorite pots, and I ripped my favorite nipple in half. I might need work on handling stress better. I've since taken out that nipple ring and will be sporting a band-aid on that nipple until it heals. R.I.P. right nipple. Morals of this story: 1. Always stay in the kitchen while you're cooking something, or set a timer and stay close. Don't do what I did. 2. It's fun to be snowed in, but don't let yourself literally be snowed in. Keep up with the snow, shovel it reasonably, as it's accumulating so you're ready in an emergency. And to make it easy on your back. You never know what's going to happen. 4. When I was 17 years old, I had extremely long hair. I'm a dude, by the way. I was going through a hippie phase and grew my hair long, so that it reached my waist. I also couldn't grow a full beard yet, so I always shaved the patches that grew. One day in 2007, I was walking my dog through the trails of my local park. A woman and her son were also walking their dog. When both our dogs met, the little boy wanted to pet my dog. The mother and I were exchanging small talk. After the boy was finished petting my dog, he looked up, stared at me, and bluntly asked, "Are you a boy or a girl?" His mother became embarrassed and tugged her son to the side, apologizing and saying to her son, "Of course she's a girl." I got my hair cut the next day. 5. So a few years back, I was going on a date with my girlfriend at the time, and it was pretty early on in our relationship. I had some half-price coupons to the local theme park, Valleyfair, Hollaback, Minnesotans, and we decided to go together. So we get to the theme park, and right at the entrance of the park is this wicked roller coaster called Steel Venom, and we decide that'll be our first ride. So we wait in line and get on the ride, and start buckling in. Now, here comes the fuck up. After I pushed down my harness, I had just a little bit too much room to wiggle around. I figure I might as well push it one more notch. Better safe than sorry, right? As it turns out, I was very, very sorry for being safe. I push the harness down one more notch, and the ride starts, and I'm enjoying the ride from the safety of my snug harness, secure in the knowledge that I won't slip out and die. I'm a huge roller coaster guy, and I'm enjoying myself, having a great time, screaming louder than I need to. Then all of a sudden I realize I'm enjoying the ride a little bit too much. The harness, which was snugly contouring my body, unfortunately had an ironclad hold on my junk, and was vibrating in all the wrong ways. I start to panic and frantically try to adjust myself in any way to get my nether regions away from the roller coaster turned sex toy, but it was no use. I was trapped in the mechanical jaws of Steel Venom, trapped by my own proclivity towards safety, and wishing that I would have just let myself slip out of my harness instead. So at this point the ride is almost over, and I'm thinking that maybe, just maybe, I can hold out. This ride doesn't need to have a happy ending. Through the power of sheer will, I may be able to resist. But Steel Venom, the flighty temptress, had other plans. Right at the end of the ride, any of you who have rode it before will know this. The ride stops on the tracks when it's vertical and shakes the passengers violently. It's normally a fun part of the ride. I think the point is to make it seem like the ride is breaking or something. However, this time around it was my undoing. The roller coaster shook, and despite my best efforts, I got to know the roller coaster in the biblical sense. So we get off on the ride, and I tell my date, I need to go to the bathroom. I assess the damage, and my shorts and underwear are what an insurance company would call a total loss. At this point, I need to decide if I tell the truth to my date, or make up some bullshit, and so, in my post-coitus addled brain, I called my dad and asked him for advice. I told my date to go on another ride without me. He tells me, "Son, that's the funniest goddamn story I've ever heard, and I'm pretty sure she'll think so too." Click. So I tell her the whole story, and she laughs, and laughs. It's echoing in my head right now. I tell her that if we want to stay, I need to buy a pair of bottoms from the gift shop. And I'll wait here in the bathroom and she can pick some out. I tell her to go nuts. So she comes back with these sweatpants with Wild Thing in pink glitter printed on the butt. Wild Thing is another roller coaster at the theme park. I change. And the rest of the day wasn't nearly as eventful. Hey everyone, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 5 True Embarrassing Stories, episode 34. Thank you very much to everyone who allowed me to use their stories in this video, and to those who also sent them in to me. It's getting harder and harder to find stories on Reddit this week. The TIFUs I just about got enough, plus one thanks very much to a subscriber who sent it in. But the Let's Not Meet subreddit, that's not so great this week. Hopefully it's just a slow week, or well, 2 weeks more like actually. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. Anyway, I think I'm going to head off for now because I've got 3 videos to make today, and I want to get that done, then get dinner made, and I'm going to sit down and enjoy Iron Fist, which came out today on Netflix. Getting bad reviews, couldn't really give a toss, I'll make my own judgments. Okay, and with that I'm going to head off for now, so until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.